Hey guys, I'm Isabel and I'm here at the Louisiana Book Festival with the fantastic author Claudia Gray.
This comes out Tuesday. We got early copies of it here at the book fair. 10,000 Skies Above You. It's the middle book in the Firebird trilogy, and this is the story of Marguerite, who travels through parallel dimensions with the help of her parents' invention, the Firebird. And in this book, in the first book, she's chasing after the people she believes killed her father. She runs into this mysterious triad corporation, and she discovers that they're actually after her because she has sort of this particular ability to travel a little bit more successfully than everybody else does. And what this company wants is for her to do their bidding. She has no intention of doing this. So they don't just kidnap Paul Markov. They split his consciousness. They splinter it into 4 pieces. And in order for her to save Paul, she literally has to put him back together again. She has to go to these dimensions and do this dirty work, which involves betraying other versions of her friends and family the whole way through. So that was really interesting to play with.
I'm so excited now. I was so excited before just because I read it and I fell in love with it. Like, the dimension change it blew me away. I did not expect it, and I didn't want to leave Russia and stuff, so I'm really excited about this one.
Oh, I hope you're going to enjoy it.
So we're going to be doing some sort of different fun questions that play with the characters of the book,
Okay.
sort of in some twisted, fun ways, and we'll see how that turns out. So number 1 is, what would a road trip with Marguerite, Paul, Lieutenant Markov, and Grand Duchess Margarita look like?
First, we got to put it in perspective. The Russiaverse people are going to be like, ah, like when they see an airplane. It's not going to be an easy road trip in that way, just because they'd be like, what is going on? In all honesty, I suspect they would probably get along fairly well, although I think there would also be a big dose of awkward because Paul has some awkward going, and double that up, it's going to be. But one of the things that you learn royal people essentially, especially with the English royals these days, the only job is to make people feel at ease. And so I think the Grand Duchess Marguerite would be very good at smoothing things over and keeping things going along.
Yeah.
I don't know where they'd go.
2, if you could travel to an alternate reality, what would you want it to be like? Who, where, and sort of would you be?
It's so difficult to know, of course. You're like, oh, I would love to be in this world where that happened. And for all you know, then, you got killed in a car wreck the next day. You don't know. I would be very curious. One of the big what ifs in my life, after undergraduate at college, I applied to teach and was offered a position teaching English in Japan. And that was where I was going to go after undergraduate. Well, then right before I was going to graduate, the company changed its policy, and now you had to actually be in Japan before they would say for sure that you had a job. And I was not going to go to Japan not knowing whether or not I had a job, so that didn't happen. But I've always really wondered what my life would be like. I think it would be very dramatically different if I had done that. I'm not sure in what way, but if that company had been bought a year later, I would be living a very different story.
Do you think you would have written the book still, maybe?
I think I still would have written at some point in my life. I'm not sure when, I'm not sure what, but I still think I would have written, but who can tell?
That's weird to think about.
Yeah.
3, if Margaret, Paul, and Theo were to become authors, what types of books do you think they would write?
Oh, that's actually a good question. Paul would not be somebody who was going to write a lot of fiction. He would be like, here is a manual about science. Here is a textbook about quantum physics. Enjoy. That would be what he would do. Marguerite, what would she write? Maybe I think she'd do something like art criticism, sort of reflecting on different things, talking about that. Again, I think she would also be drawn more to nonfiction. Theo, I think, would write fiction. I think he would write big, crazy thrillers where the hot detective guy gets all the girls and has this adventure. I think that would be his thing.
That's automatically what I thought about. Theo would just play out his life sort of vicariously.
Yeah,
through these,
exactly,
awesome characters. 4, if the Firebird could transport you and your characters into another book series, what series would it be, and how would you and your characters make it out there?
Ooh. one's tough. I mean, let's face it, automatically I'm going to go to the Harry Potter universe. That's just what it is. Nobody's going to want to go anywhere else.
It's the safest, like, YA
Well,
place
it's
to
fun.
go.
It's totally fun, especially now that Harry took care of that Voldemort problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'd go there. What would they think? I think Paul would be driven a little bit mad. He would be attempting to figure out the science behind all the magic, because he would argue that there has to be some science behind it, even if we don't understand it. And I think that would be very, very hard for him. I think Marguerite would love it, and she would spend her entire time talking to the paintings. That's it. She would just be like, "Oh, thank goodness they can talk back." Yeah, she would be finding out everything they thought. She would think that was awesome. You know, me, I'm just going to be running around going, "Ah."
I'm in Harry Potter.
Exactly.
What do you think Theo would do?
What would Theo do? Theo would immediately begin trying to learn magic. Immediately. He would want everything he could get at his disposal right away.
I can see him and Peeves, like, teaming up and just running around the castle.
I can see that too, yeah.
5, if you were forced to be on a reality TV show, would you be on Top Chef or Project Runway?
I don't really think I could do either of those very well. I'd want to do The Amazing Race.
Really?
Yeah, because you get to see the world. It looks like it would be pretty tiring, but you would get to see all these different places and all these different things. And
I would love to do that.
You know, I'd probably, I'd get a good friend of mine to just go with me.
Yeah.
That would be much more interesting for me, because I can't make clothing. I can cook a little bit, but not Top Chef wise. But I've traveled a lot. I think I could manage.
Yeah, that'd be fun. And my only thing would be like the running, the actual racing, and doing all that stuff. Like, let me go there, but please don't make me run.
Yeah.
And 6, can you tell us a bit about 1,000 Skies Above You and what it has been like writing the book, putting it together, preparing for the release?
Well, we went over the main plot of 10,000 Skies a little bit before, but it was interesting because I had to set it up in such a way that if you were coming in cold, you could still tell what was going on. But it, just like 1,000 Pieces of You, it very much begins with the race underway.
Yeah.
Things have already gone really seriously south when we get started. But it was fun coming up with different worlds that would test Marguerite in certain ways. These are other versions of her family that she has to turn on, and there's one world where they're very much at risk, they're very vulnerable, and she has very mixed feelings about this, but what is she going to do? She's got to try and rescue Paul. Does she have this choice? And one thing that comes up repeatedly in the book is, she and Paul, they keep being brought back together. There's this connection they have that just keeps being recreated. Not in every universe, but in very, very many worlds. And there's this kind of idea, like, every me loves every you, that this happens. And she encounters a couple of versions of Paul in this book that are darker, basically, because everybody would have a few universes where you did not turn out to be such a nice person. All you need are certain things to happen to you. And it's not that she doesn't care about Paul after she sees this, but it's a little scary when you realize,
like, put some more things into perspective.
Yeah, you're like, oh, can you love somebody when you see that they have this, this potential within them, that's there too. And so a lot of it is grappling with that. I think in book 1 we saw a lot of darkness in Theo, this other Theo, and in this one you see a lot of darkness within Paul.
I think that was what really stood out to me, and I said in my review, was just the challenge that the book took on, that idea that can you be sort of in love and end up with the same people in these alternate realities? Like, are we all drawn together in some way by this whatever force or fate and stuff? And so I thought that was really neat.
I really enjoyed playing with that, but like one thing that plays out in this, and especially in the 3rd book, is what exactly are you being guaranteed by this destiny? What exactly are you getting there? And I think after book 1, Marguerite sort of feels like, destiny gives us this, perfect rosy future because we're supposed to be together forever and ever. And over the second 2 books, she sort of begins to question, like, what is it exactly that we're given? Without, I don't think it undermines like the love or the romance of it, but I mean, that's the whole question, isn't it? When you fall in love with somebody, you do fall in love with all the potential people they could be from then on, and you don't always get to know all of this in advance. If you did know all of this in advance, would it change some things? You know, maybe it would, and in some cases maybe it should, but so that was fun to play with, a lot of fun to play with. I will say the third book, we haven't announced the title yet, but first book's The Darkness in Theo, second book's The Darkness in Paul, third book is The Darkness in Marguerite.
I'm excited to explore her more because in the first book you were very, like, just from the beginning, her in the alley, like, thrown into that world, and I really loved that because it wasn't like this introduction to the story where it's like, okay, it was just like, what's happening? Like, what is going on?
I'm glad you enjoyed that. It was a tough beginning to nail because there's a lot of information that needs to come across in a big hurry. But I didn't want it to start slow. It had to start with that first wham, she's just gone through.
It was so interesting because I was just like, what's happening? I gotta know what's going on.
Okay, that's good in a good way. Because sometimes people go, what's happening, in a bad way. But
so having to go through all those dimensions, like what drew you to pick those, like Russia and what happens here in this book?
In the first book, they were largely based on nonfiction books I happened to be reading at the time. I'd read a book about Imperial Russia, Russiaverse. I'd read a book about rogue waves, Oceanverse. This was a little more deliberate, I think, in choosing the worlds, but they had to have a very different flavor. You know, I had to have a feel for how they would be there. It had to be just cool and interesting as well. So that was fun. And again, it has to pose some sort of challenge to Marguerite that she hasn't faced before, which is really the tricky thing. I thought of a lot of fun universes, but it's like, how does that test her? How does that pull things forward? So, so that was really, really interesting. I will say something that happens in this book and happens even more in the third book. Marguerite will go back to some dimension she's visited before and has to deal with some of the repercussions of her actions there. Because, you know, she's tried pretty hard to be responsible with a couple of major slips, but, you know, she is walking around in these other people's bodies and you can't really know the consequences of all your choices.
You know, when you leave them and stuff.
So she gets to see some of that.
Awesome. I'm excited.
Thanks for interviewing me. Thanks for having me. I hope you guys will check out the Firebird series. Now here with 10,000 Skies Above You.
Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you so much for doing an interview with us and joining us.
No, this is great. This is great.
Thank you. And I will leave links to all of Claudia's stuff into the book down below. You guys should definitely check it out. We'll see you all next time. Bye.